There we go. I hate it when it doesn't let me do that. There we go. All right, so again, I just wrote in the upper right, 3x plus 1 equals 7. Same exact numbers and same variable in the same spots as the 3x plus 1 is greater than 7 down there. Not anything different except for the symbol. That's it. So the difference is really, it's not in the solving. We do the same exact steps when we solve, except we have to check the last step for one special case, which we'll talk about in a minute. The difference is how you interpret the solution. And we do that by reading these as different rules that we have to follow. The rule in the top one, the 3x plus 1 equals 7, is that 3x plus 1 has to equal 7. I mean, the rule is exactly what's in the statement, namely the equal sign. There's only one answer that will work for that. If I do all the math, somebody did it, I know. What did you get when you solved it out? Whoever solved it out. What was the answer? X equals what?
Anything above 7, 8 times.
Well, on the what was the number you got though? What was the number if you solve it out? What did you get? X equals what? Or X would be greater than down there. But somebody did it, I know. So, 2, right? That is the only answer up here. If I solve this out, subtract 1, 3x equals 6, divided by 3, divided by 3, x equals 2. That's it. Because the left side has to be exactly 7, because that's exactly what's on the right side. That's what an equation is. The left side has to be exactly the same number once you do all the math. Which again, you can't do that until you think you know what x is. But initially, before that, we would just say, well, whatever 3x plus 1 is, whatever number that comes out to be, it has to equal 7, because 7 is what's on the other side. The other side is always going to be 7, because there's just a 7 over there. There's no variables. Now, if you had variables on the other side, then you'd have to do the math on the other side also, if you thought you knew what the answer was. But regardless, whatever's on the left, once you do all the math, has to equal whatever's on the right. In an inequality, we just change that a little bit. We just change that rule, and we say, well, still, whatever's on the left is going to be compared, which is the word UZL use, which I like. But we just are going to use a different, instead of saying equals, we're just going to use kind of a different wording based on whatever the symbol is. In this case, the symbol is a greater than symbol. And we always read this based on where the variable is. So it's this side has to be greater than this side, or the left side has to be greater than the right side. Any number that fits for that will work. In some of them, you could just say, well, I know if I plugged in 100, that's going to, the left side is going to be greater than the right side. So you can guess at a bunch of them really quickly in a greater than or less than, or greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. But when you solve it, you're doing the same exact steps. You can do the same two-step equation we just did up there. We can solve it real quick. I'm going to get rid of all of that. I would do the same thing. Subtract 1, subtract 1. That'll give me 3x. It's an x. 3x. It was up there if you hopefully wrote it down. Equals 6. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. So I get the same thing. I get x in 2. Only difference is I have a different symbol. So now instead of x having to be exactly 2, it can be great. Actually, it has to be greater than 2. Can it be 2? Can't be 2. In this case, it doesn't say x can be equal to 2. That would be this symbol, which is not the symbol we have. So in this case, x has to be greater than 2. It cannot equal 2. So again, the only difference, or not the only difference, but the difference in the answers is really what we're trying to understand. Like, the steps are pretty much the same. We do have to be careful on number 2 when you're solving. If you did not write this down yesterday, I'm actually going to go to a slide so you can see it. I have the steps again because you're going to be using those today. Here's the new thing you add. I'm going to get rid of that sheet. So add in on your step sheet, if you didn't already add something like this, that part down at the bottom. Yesterday I set it out for you. We said when solving inequalities, if you divide or multiply by a negative as the last step, then you need to flip the sign. So that wording is pretty much the same. It might be slightly different. But, if you did not get that, or wouldn't hurt you to write it down again, you didn't put it on your step sheet already because you're going to be using that today. That's the only difference when you're solving. All the other differences are in the way you interpret the solution or the original rule. The left side has to now either be greater than or less than or greater than or equal to or less than or equal to the right side. I added this in too, by the way. That was not on there. If you want to add that to your sheet, your step sheet. A lot of people were not getting, either they were doing stuff before they got to this step that they shouldn't have been doing, or they weren't sure what to do at that step. Once you get to this step, when you got a term with a variable and a constant and a term with a variable and a constant on both sides, you should not ever have any issue. Maybe you make math mistakes, but you should always start in the right place. You should always do the correct math. You may then add it wrong or subtract wrong, but you shouldn't have an issue of what to do. We're going to work a little bit on that, and we did on the big quiz. We had a lot of issues. Bigger issue was, though, that we didn't get to this step correctly. We did something wrong before, like we didn't combine like terms correctly most of the time. So we're going to go ahead, work on those sheets. You should have 2 sheets that I gave you. One is 2-step equations. I'm going to give you some to work on that. You don't have to do them all. I'm not expecting you to do every single problem on there. I'm going to pick a few that I think are good examples that you should be able to do. Don't worry about any of them that have fractions. So there are a few that have fractions. I do want you to work on some of the ones that have distributive property, especially with a negative sign involved. So circle these. 1, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. We'll leave the back page maybe for another day. So that's the 2-step inequality. Anyway, now on the other sheet where it says multi-step inequalities, we're not going to get into super complex ones, even though you should be able to do those. They're, again, same steps as equations, but we're still working on those as well. Here's what I want you to circle on that page. So again, we're on the page that says multi-step inequalities. It's a 1 page. So 1, 2, let's go with 8, 5, and we'll go with 11 and 12. Now here's still today's goal. We are going to work some on the multi-step, but remember, your goal by end of class, so like the last 30 minutes of class on Thursday, you better be able to, and make sure you're graphing these. I'll just solve them out. Because that's what your exit ticket is. Solving a 2-step equation and then being able to graph that solution. Now, if you solve it incorrectly, but then you graph that solution correctly, so let's say on the one we just solved where it was, we came out with x should be greater than 2. Let's say you came out with x should be greater than 3, but then you graphed x should be greater than 3 correctly. I'd still give you credit for that. I'm going to grade whatever your answer is. I'm not going to count them both wrong if you do the graph part right, even though you came up with the wrong answer. I'll probably just give you just one at least where you just graph it. There's no, you don't have to solve anything out to make sure you have one that I can grade for graphing. Maybe I might even do a couple of those because those don't take long at all. What you need, so I'll zoom out. You should have the sheet. I'll leave it up though, just in case. If you do not know what to do, you better have this sheet out. There are some with distributive property, so some of them you will start on step 1. If you're doing the 2-step equations, then you're up here anyway. If you don't know how to do the 2-step equations, here's what you need to do. Let's add a page then, I guess. So if you are completely clueless, can't even do a 2-step equation, here's what you need to do. In the 2-step equation, you need to circle the term with the variable. Oh, I should add one thing in here. Hold on. First thing you really need to do is have your step sheet out. You're sitting there telling me you're clueless and don't know how to do it and you don't have that sheet out? I'm going to keep walking. So have that out. Might be, I think for you guys it should all be pink, so look for a pink piece of paper. So then, the next thing you would do in every one of those that I just had you circle the term that has the variable. So again, there should be 2 constants, so just numbers with no variable. One of those terms should have a variable with it. So like if you look at the first problem, just as an example. First problem, you have 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 24. Which one would you circle? You can look at your sheet, it's not from the board. We'd circle the 2x. Yeah. That's the term with the variable. The one with the letter is the term with the variable. You'd circle 2x. Once you've done that for every problem, I'll be walking around and I'll help you at that point. If you haven't done, if you don't have that out, if you haven't and this is for every problem, not just for one, for every one that I told you to circle. Then I will help you. But if you haven't done those steps, I hope there shouldn't be anybody that can't do those steps, unless you don't understand what I'm like. Literally, don't understand English, which might have. All right. So that's what you need to do before. And then I gave you the these things. If you look over here, if you need help, just put the yellow. That way you don't have to hold your hand up forever. If you need help, put the yellow side up. If you don't need help, put the black side up. If you're good, you're moving forward, keep the black side up. So don't keep on moving. I can spend time with people that need help. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that before I start walking around anyway. I want you to try it before you just automatically start asking for help. Yeah, trade your phone out. I should be able to get around to everybody. Once I feel fairly comfortable with how we're doing on 2-step equations, I'll probably let you get on phones. But again, it doesn't mean you stop working. If I feel like the phones are preventing you from continuing to work, then I won't do that again next time we do this. I think this class is normally pretty good. Small class is pretty good check. Just try a couple more and I'll take a look at it. I feel like you're probably fine. Now, if you're good with the 2-step equations, once you don't even have to do all of the ones that I told you to circle. If you want to move to the multi-step equations, that's fine. I'm not forcing you to do all those. You just need to be practicing. Again, I want to make sure you're ready for the exit ticket, but we need to start working on those multi-step equations too, for those of you that are ready. And I was about to do something else. I don't know what it was. So do you not have that pink sheet this way? You do have it, you just don't need it. You're good. All right. So do you have it? Do you know what an ESOL means?
room where you get all the English and cultural. You know what I'm saying?
Let me freeze that just so you remember what you need to do. I'm going to stop the recording too. Well, actually, no, I'm going to work one out real quick. I'm going to do number one, and then I'll do one of the more difficult ones, just so you do have kind of a couple of examples of the problems. So if you've already done number one, you can check it up here real quick. If you haven't done it, like if you're struggling, if your yellow side is up, you can watch this real quick. So 2x plus 4, and again, remember, these are two-step equations. You're only going to do two things. So if I really didn't know what I was doing, here's the process I would follow. Again, you don't all have to do this. So I would say, well, that's the term with the variable. So Mr. Gill said, circle that first. I don't know what I'm doing. I would circle that. That means everything else is a constant. There's only terms with a variable and constants. Well, now if you go to your sheet, and this is what I'm going to have you do when I come over to you if you need help, it says start with the constant on the same side as the variable term. Sides are still determined by wherever the symbol is. Doesn't matter that it's not an equal sign anymore. We still use that as kind of separating the left from the right. So if that's the variable term, and that's the side I focus on, it says on my sheet, that's the constant. Hey, what's up? So we need to go ahead and do the opposite math. So on your sheet, it should say the first time we add or subtract. Second time, we're going to multiply or divide. If you don't have that written down, I can put it back up here in a minute, but let me finish the problem. When I come around, I'll see if you have it on there or not. So again, first time, start with a constant, I'm going to add or subtract. Well, I need to do the opposite, so good. I'll subtract. Now what do? Yeah, remember the most important rule is whatever you do on one side, you got to do it on both sides. So now I just do the math. That goes away, so we bring down the 2x. So now, who am I going to call on? Ash. What do I do now? Yeah, this one. I'll put that up. The first time. Oh yeah. So what's it say on your second step? When you do the opposite math again, doesn't it tell you what possible options you could use on that? Well, add and subtract was the first time, which we just did. That was the first time we do opposite math. So we did the add and the subtract thing. So the second time we do the opposite math, it's either going to be division or multiplication. So we got to figure out what's the math in the equation that we have left. What does 2x mean? Means right. So we need to do the opposite of that, which would be what? Division. So we would divide, always divide by the number. You're not dividing, you're dividing by the number, the coefficient. You remember our definitions. Coefficient is what we're dividing by. We wouldn't divide by 20. We never do anything over there. We always focus on where the variable is. So if we divide both sides by 2, then we get, and did we divide by a negative? Remember, don't forget to check that. Was our last step dividing by a negative?
No.
No, so we don't need to worry about flipping the sign. That's the only thing we got to really remember to check. So we don't flip the sign. We just say, I'm going to write it over here so we can graph it. We get x is greater than or equal to 10. Now, we solved it out. We got a number. Here's your process for graphing. I didn't write this up, so you can write it up if you want. Step 1. I'll write this up for you, though, and put it up here like I had that on the step sheet. Or you can write it on your step sheet. That's not bad when graphing inequalities. I need to put a circle on that number that I solved and got 10. If, by the way, you come up with an answer and it's not on your graph, you probably did some math wrong. They're giving you a graph based on what your answer should be. So if you come up with an answer not on the graph, well, first, before we do that, what's the next thing? So the first thing, put a circle on the number that you solved and came up with. What's the next thing we have to ask? Yeah, we got to say, hey, is that a solution? Do we need to fill this circle in, meaning yes, that's a solution, or do we just leave it open? UZL, do you remember how to do that? How do we determine if we need to fill that circle in, or if we... Good. So we would fill this in if it has this little line, this little guy underneath, because that means 10 is a solution. Because if we plug in 10 here, 10 is greater than or equal to, because it's equal to 10. So it is a solution. So if 10 is a solution, or basically if you have that little guy, you fill it in, and then we need all the numbers. X represents all the numbers that are considered answers. What numbers are greater than 10, right or left? Right, good. So that's how you graph, but again, I'll be walking around. If you didn't get all of that from yesterday and today, I'll be walking around and helping. So if you need help, again, yellow side up, totally good. If you need help on the multi-step, leave it as black for now so I can help some of the people with the two-step, since that's our goal for today and for the exit ticket on Friday. If you're good with the two-step and you're on the multi-step, then you're in pretty good shape. So I'll help you a little bit maybe at the end of class, but I got to make sure everybody's good for the exit ticket. Go ahead, keep working. And again, yellow side up means you need help. Black side up means you're good. Yeah. You're talking about a -3? Yeah, absolutely. What's -3 divided by -3? What is -3 divided by 3? What's 3 divided by 3? -3 divided by negative. Anything divided by itself is 1. Oh, I know I'm probably supposed to ignore you, but this gentleman doesn't understand. I want him to go to Esau, he doesn't understand. Is there some way I can get somebody to come? I was gonna email Evan.
I don't know if Mr. Mango is one.
What's that?
So I'm not sure what Mr. Mango has going on.
Oh, is it? I thought there was a room where they like kids go there during other classes.
I'm not sure what's the point. It's a new teacher this week.
Oh, okay. Shoot. Fine.
I'll send you this, who he is.
Yeah, if you could, please. I sent somebody there the other day. I think Nevin's somebody did, because she doesn't understand. I've got like 3 or 4 that speak 0 English. At least, maybe more. Let's see, anybody with yellow up? Need help?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at your steps. Oh, again, make sure you try some with distributive property on the 2-step. Like that's, you're going to see that possibly, probably on the exit ticket. You won't all have it, but you need to know how to do it. +16, that's good. -4, positive x. So look at this. If this sign is the opposite of that, right? That's a negative, that's a positive. These can't both be the same. There's no way, right? No way if they're different signs in the parentheses, they need different signs in the actual next line of equation. If they're the same in the parentheses, they better be the same in the first line of the equation. Boy, I'm not seeing a lot of yellow, which I'm happy about, but I hope you guys are making sure you remember to do that. If you need help, remember, turn it over to yellow. Yellow here. Okay, we'll go ahead and put it on black then, so I can tell. just walk around these. So you don't have this on yellow. Did you understand what I was saying about you need help? Oh, did you already? You need help. Well, you guys solve it out before you put it up. Here's what I want you to do. We did that. You have an example. It's just those are all just two-step equations. You need to get your pink sheet out, which I asked you about earlier, and you said you had it, but then you didn't take it out. So these are the equations. I'm gonna take this off the screen real quick so that Josue can write something. So I'm gonna zoom in so that you can get some of this stuff down. So you need to add this in on your sheet. Oh, okay. So you need to add these two bullets underneath that. You don't have any of this stuff written down. Oh, yeah, look you say that. You have a folder in there, right? So grab your folder. So you missed the lesson. I don't know if you watched the video or not. Yeah, but it's a whole. I'll just work through you some. It seems like everybody's in pretty good shape. But if they're if they turn their eraser yellow side up, then turn it black side up. I'm not seeing a lot of yellow. So I probably won't have plenty of time to work on it. But here's what you need to do. So we're doing a two-step equation called two-step inequality. The steps are going to be the same. The difference is one step you got to be aware of again. It's a little different, and you're also going to have to react. Here's what I want you to do. Oh, can somebody tell me again, real quick, what are the, while you got your papers out, what are the ones that I told you to do again?
For what, two-step?
Just for the two-step, yeah.
1, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11.
1, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. Thank you. All right, so on this page, do you remember how to do two-step equations? You have that step sheet? All right. If you get stuck, you don't know what I want you to do, make sure you go through each of these nice circles. Circle the term. Now here you're going to have to do distributive property. Right? If you don't remember how to do that, then you'll have to skip those. But on the ones like this one, so there's 3, they don't have distributive property. Just circle the term with the variable, and then I'll come back. And I'll give you an eraser so you can kind of flip it yellow side up when you get done with it. Should be one in that top drawer, I believe. There are some in there. If not, I'll find one, but I think there are still some in there. And then I'm going to do, just to make sure we get everybody started, because this has happened a couple of times, on the distributive property. I'm going to do one with the distributive property. So look at, what number is that, Eva? All right, did you get all that? Which way? Did you get those two? All right, there's something else I'm going to have you write in a minute, but let me do this. All right, so on number 4, remember when we do the distributive property, if it's all positive stuff, it's not too bad. We just got to remember to multiply times the second term. So the -4 times the x in this case. When we got some negatives, we got to be careful. So I showed you a way to do it that I thought kept it pretty clean. I'm going to show you that again. Don't worry about putting addition and subtraction in the problem. Just use the negative or positive, the addition or subtraction signs, as the sign in front of the numbers. So, as an example, this negative sign would go with the 4. We would treat that as negative 4. So, and when we're doing distributive property, we're multiplying the outside number times all of the terms that are inside the parentheses. That's the first thing you gotta remember. This is a multiplication problem. We're multiplying negative 4. I hate that I can't get out of the way. We're multiplying the negative 4 times the negative 4, and then the negative 4 times the positive x, or positive 1x. Remember, if you want to put a 1 in front of it, we talked about that. So I just write negative 4 as a number. And then I say, okay, well, I need to multiply that times negative 4. Now I just say, all right, I need to use the negative 4 again. And I need to multiply that times, again, if you want to write 1x, that's fine. It's a positive x, though, because it's got an addition sign in front of it, so it's positive x. Now we just do the math. And the addition, subtraction all takes care of itself. What's a negative times a negative? You should have these rules written on your paper. It's positive, right? So if you don't have that written, a negative times a negative is a positive. I'm going to come down here, bring the whole next line down here. So a negative times a negative is a positive. Positive 16. You can even write the positive in for the front number. Oh, really? What is a negative times a positive? That's a negative, right? So now we write that as a subtraction sign, and then we write the 4x. Because negative 4 times x is just negative 4x. Then we can write the rest of the equation, which is just greater than 56. Now you have a two-step equation that you can solve out using the sheets or the steps on your sheet. So there, I kind of got you started on that one. You can check your math, make sure. So did that clear it up for you, Eva? Did that fix your mistake? Did you send that over for me? I can't really do anything about it right now. I'll talk to him later. Let's see. Oh, so you got negative 7x is less 3, 2 negative 3, right? So you're not done. So what do you say again? Or you're not done. You did this, you did the addition or subtraction, right? What's your second math? There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Good. And then now you should get a number that falls right into the graph. Well, you are actually, I say that you are doing stuff. Right? You need to focus on this part up here. You got one of those signs wrong. I want you to try to figure out which sign is wrong. Oh, you don't need to go. You're good? Okay. Let's see what you got. So what's a negative? The rules for division are the same as the rules for multiplication. So if a negative times a negative is positive, then a negative divided by a negative is also a positive. I'll be back up you in a second. I don't see the change yet in what I was talking about. Your distributive property, you got signs. Go all the way back to the first step you did. Check your positive and negative signs again. You wrote the wrong thing down. There should have been a positive 16. You were negative 16. But then you did subtract 16 here. Technically, you should have added. You were plus 16. Those should always be the same. Somehow you just knew what you should be doing over here. Or yeah, because there you did subtract and subtract. So maybe you just knew you should be subtracting. I don't know, but you got the right answer. But remember, this would have been positive 16, negative. So now, enter negative. Negative 4. Oh, that was just this. The number outside. Yeah, we said -4 times -4. You got to multiply times both. That's the distributive property. That's why I draw. Well, oh no, this one. You see the two little lines that I drew? I drew one line from the -4 to the -4. I got to multiply times that. But then another line from the -4 to the x. Whatever's on the outside, you got to multiply times every different term on the inside. When you get to algebra next year, you might actually have 3 terms in here, and you would still multiply times all 3 terms. So it's not even always just 2. So just remember that. If you got a number on the outside that's being multiplied times stuff in parentheses, you got to multiply times every single term. The step sheet, yeah, you can use it. Just leave it in here if you would, please. Because I'm going to have to get it, let other people use it, I'm sure, in other classes. So, did you do this one? Oh, you did what I did. You tried to solve one. So try to, that one you can try to solve out, or these that are already, we already got rid of parentheses. I'm going to say you are not having trouble with 2 subjects today. Somehow, you're doing that thing again where you're just trying to solve it without using the steps. It's not going to work when you have answers in our pictures. You can see the steps. Is that what you're doing? Plug in the numbers, try to solve it. And not all of your steps, but you don't even have it written down when I have it written down. I can solve it out. Yeah, -4. Oh, is that 16? That's 6? It isn't, yeah, so we're going to -4 times x equals -4x. You should be multiplying -4 times -4. That should be a problem. That should be 6. You should have subtracting it. Oh, you're doing this a different way. I want you to, let me get you a big eraser. I want you to erase that and let's walk through the steps together. Should have one. Oh, fine. So erase all of that. I'm going to go through the whole thing. So you were doing 2 subdivisions pretty easily today. Oh, grades are all in, by the way. If anybody wasn't here yesterday, which nobody raised their hand, they are all in. Your grade is pretty much up to date. You might be missing a classwork grade that I have. I don't remember. I think I put it in. You're pretty up to date. Good. 40. Now remember, this is a negative 4x. This is a negative 4 with x. So all your steps are good. Be careful if you have a negative sign in front, which that one I know is the distributive property. But that would then change, so now you'd be dividing by negative 4, and you'll notice you got a positive 10 here. Well, positive 10 is not in there. So that would be pretty good. Go back to the top. 7. You have it right, it would be more negative. Well, let's try that one. Well, you apparently realized that it was still 6. I mean, that was a 6 because 63 divided by 7 would be 9. It is negative, so it would be positive. When you look like you're in better shape, I think that you were probably having a little trouble still last week, but it looks like you're getting a little bit confused. So. I haven't really been checking graphs, so what's really the main thing you need to check on those graphs? Who thinks they know what the main thing you need to check is? The thing that kids forget all the time. Most of the time, kids shade in the correct direction. There's one thing that kids forget to check all the time. What is it?
To make sure you have
Is it an open or closed circle? So here's what I would do if I were you. I would make this part of my process on inequalities. Just go through before you start solving anything. I might even give a point for this. So if you're doing these, so I told you to circle these, right? Is it 3? I think it was 3. Let's just, was 3 one of them or not? I don't think 3 was one of them, actually. It doesn't matter. Here, these are not the ones I told you to do. Let's just say these were the ones I said to do. I would just go through, I'd just look at the sign immediately. Just look at the sign and say, okay, well, if I've got an equal sign underneath that, that's going to be a closed circle. If I've got an equal sign underneath that, that's going to be a closed circle. No equal sign, open circle. I would do that as my first step. Because it's amazing how many, even kids that are good with solving and graphing, they're just automatically used to normally filling in a circle, so they just put a dot in there and they fill it in and then they shade. They forget to check. So if you made that your very first step, it would probably prevent you from ever making that error where you accidentally filled in a circle that shouldn't have been filled in. That's the normal error, is to fill it in when it shouldn't be. All right, so I'll keep walking around. I'll give it 5 more minutes, and then we'll be at about 30 minutes, and I'll let you guys take out phones. Again, phones are not for social media. Phones are to do a playlist so that you can listen while you continue to work. But I do want you to get to the multi-step stuff, unless you're really still struggling with the 2-step. Ooh, that's a big number. So yeah, you'd have to be able to divide that. I'm going to do some math for you. 5. So on one of the problems, you're going to come out, what number is that, Derek? So on number 8, you're going to come out with some big numbers that you have to divide. You need to be able to do division. Oh yeah, I do have 8. You do need to be able to do division, but I'll just tell you, now these are not necessarily exactly the numbers you're going to come out with. So don't write exactly these. 6, 36. I'll just tell you that that right there equals 5. I find that information helpful. Now, again, those are not necessarily the exact numbers that you have in the problem, but that should still be helpful. If you've already done it, then negative 3. Did you do the other one? Is that the same one you were working on earlier? Oh, you fixed that. So you saw what I was talking about there, right? And then it came out right or not? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 0. You made the same exact mistake. Same exact mistake. Look at that again. Oh, that means you didn't come out of the right math. Oh, that positive or negative. And that'll fix it. Now it'll come out to be a lower number. Look at your step sheet. Let me see your sheet. You didn't make any mistakes at all. I'm gonna let you go. Positive, negative. That's good. Good. Positive. No, I still want you to finish. I mean, unless are you like I'm good? Is that what you stop? Okay, that's fine. Any, like you have any? I'm not gonna look at it if you think you're good. Check them. Still, well, I'll tell you what, since I'm letting phones come out in a couple minutes, you don't even have to put your phone in there. Please come back quickly though, because somebody else needs to go. Let me check 2, 3. Let me check this row real quick, and then I'll let you guys pull phones out. Did you have a specific one or just Is the last step. All right, let's talk about that. I'm just going to do it up here. So I saw kind of one of your numbers, so I'm just going to use that. Well, it doesn't really matter. I can probably use what's in here. Anytime. So first, here's your question. You need to say, well, what's going on in the equation? Like, what's going on in the equation that I'm trying to solve for? If you see this of number times a variable, doesn't matter if it's negative, positive, that's multiplication. Right? Because we said multiplication is the only math where we don't show a math symbol. We show, obviously we show addition and subtraction. There's addition, there's subtraction. So those are obvious that we show those. We show division by writing this. That means division. We write that line in between with a number on the top and a number on the bottom. So we show every math except for multiplication. That is -7 times x. That is 3 times p. That is -4 times whatever's in parentheses. That's -4 times, I don't know why they keep using -4. That's -3 times whatever's in parentheses. So multiplication is the only one we don't know. Now, if you don't know that, here's what I do since it's open note. On your pink sheet, just write this. Say, write a little note, say, that means we're multiplying, or that means multiplication. So that way you don't even really have to understand that it means that as long as you have that written. Now here's the thing. We need to do the opposite math. They're like, you should have that written. Yeah. So we do the opposite math, and the second time it's going to be multiplication and division, right? So if we know we have multiplication, we need to do the opposite of that. What's the opposite of multiplication? Yeah. So you're always thinking, what's the opposite? Looking at what's in your equation, you got to think, what's the opposite math? And then you just have to be able to recognize when you have multiplication, so you know the opposite will be division. The only time you're going to multiply, and I'll be honest, I don't put a lot of them on quizzes anymore. We did it real quick at the beginning. If you had this at the end, like if I solved this one out, I'll do it real quick. This, I would subtract the 4 and subtract the 4. So I would get n over 3 is less than 2. Well, that's division. So if that's division, the opposite would be to multiply. But if you don't have a fraction in it, you're never going to do it's all. You're always going to be multiplying with your last step if there's no fraction at the end. Did that help? I think I confused you more. Just remember, hey, if you're in doubt, the last step is division. Let's make it real simple. Because frankly, I don't put a lot of fractions on tests, which is the only time you'd ever have to worry about making that decision. Is it multiplying or dividing is the last step? So for my test, it's pretty much always going to be division as the last step. Even next year, most of the time it'll probably still be division. So if you're not sure, that last step is typically going to be division. Does that make sense? Try to do a couple out. Let me finish going down this row real quick. Did you do that other stuff? What did you circle? Yeah, so on all of these, I want you to circle. So on all of these, oh, actually on these, so on these two, circle the variable term. Don't worry about that. I'll get you there. First step in the equation. This is what we do after we solve. On those two equations, I want you to circle the term of the variable. You didn't multiply. Oh, if you are in debt, $56, and then I take $70 more from you, which you owe more. So you're more in debt. So it'd be negative 60. But I want you to be ready for it. That's the first thing. Let's not worry about rushing to do it. It's going to be a 0 until you take it. Don't rush and take it early just to get it done. You need to be ready for it. You missed a lot of class. Right now, by watching you do this, you're not ready. I like how do you get home? How do you get home? With somebody that you possibly stay later, or you get somebody come pick you up and go with somebody to go to school here. You can stay one afternoon. I'd like for you to do that so that you're ready for it, and then you can take it like another like the next day or the day like that. Okay, can you? Yeah, tomorrow would work. Oh, that should be good. Thursday I wouldn't be able to do it. Tomorrow. So make arrangements to stay after. As soon as the day is over, I'm going to come after the day is over. And we'll spend basically the same review they got the day before the quiz. I'll give you that review. And that will help a lot. We go over everything. Are you good now, Eagle? Do you need help, Michael, or? So try it again on your own and go. What's that? We got it. How do we know if you got something? This is third grade probably. Checking the answer is the exact same with these. So by the way, I haven't emphasized this in inequalities. checking your answer for an inequality is just like checking your answer in an equation. You plug the number back in for the variable, and the left side, now it's a little weird because of the symbol, but basically you should still get the same number on the left and the right. So if you plug a number back in and you get the same number on the left and the right, then you did the math correctly. Now technically you need to make sure you have the right symbol also, but we don't worry about that. So if I plug, so what'd you get? There's 4. What's 4 subtract 4? It's negative 3 times 0. Negative 3 times 0. Oh, 4 subtract 4 is 0, so that's what we have in parentheses. 0 times negative 3 is 1. We got 0 on both sides. Right? Now then you just need to make sure you graph correctly. So you have to graph. Ooh. Positive 4 is good, but what's the one thing when we solve we have to check for inequalities? So well, it's a negative 3 times r. It's negative 3r. And then negative 3 times negative 4. So again, just like we did up here, it's the outside number on the first one. The outside number, second one. Here's what I want you to do. You didn't write down how we got this. Just wrote down the answer. So I need you to write this part right here. So this is what we got. That's what you wrote. You didn't write that. So go back up to that one and write that first. That's going to be the model we use and then try to figure the next one. Don't forget to check. Are you, or am I, if you want to say it from your perspective, am I dividing by a negative as my last step? If you do, you need to be flipping the symbol. And there are, the reason I picked some of these is because you'll need to flip the symbol. So I already saw one of them where the symbol needs to be flipped, and somebody didn't see that, I didn't remember it. Make sure you check that on the last step. If you divide by a negative, you need to flip the symbol. Michael already had that. You want to take phones out. Again, this is not chatting, texting time, so and don't use it to help you with the math. That's not going to be any good when it comes to quiz time. You can put a playlist on if you have earbuds. Don't have earbuds, then I really don't want you to be blaring music. I guess if it's super, super quiet where only you can hear it, that's a lot of tapping though, Michael. It's not for social media, not for texting, not for chatting. So if I see you constantly tapping your phone, then I know you're not working. You can put some kind of a playlist on or something like that, then I'll let you use it. I need some of you to continue, unless you've done all the 2-step that I said, and if you can get some of the multi-step done, then I might change that. But good. You didn't write it, it came out with the right answer, but I guess that could just be because the other one's not variable. So this would be a negative 7 that we divide by. Just don't forget, if I have a negative here, I have to divide by, and that's pretty important because what? Not only would it change, technically, you shouldn't have gotten positive 9, you should have gotten negative 9 divided by positive 7, but you kind of knew it had to be positive 9, just negative 9 in there. Why else is it important to divide by that? That we should have put a negative in that 7. You gotta write that down. We'll put back up for you. If you didn't get this earlier, I might have left it too early. I don't remember in all honesty. If you didn't get this last, which I don't Here, I'm gonna zoom, or not zoom, but go there. Photo. So this is the little note about if I divide by a negative on my last step, then I need to flip the sign. I'm gonna walk around and see if everybody has that. Oh yeah, so you were at the top of it. There must be a method. I want you to try to find it first. You got it written down. You got it written down at the bottom. Yeah. You have that last step. You do good. What about that? Do you have a phone? You can pull your phone out. I want you to look something up. So look up this. I go to YouTube and look up two-step inequality. You can watch those videos. Yeah. Oh, you wrote on that. Did you already have it? Oh, okay. So, using that, why is it important again? So we change that to -7. What does that mean for you now? So read that real quick and we'll come back. I can't do it today. Well, I can do it for like 30 minutes today. So if you'd rather. Okay, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. I'll be here until probably 2:40, 2:45. All right, so tell you what. We got a lot of time. Here's what I want you to do now. If this is the variable term, right, which it's not real hard to pick out the variable term, right? So I'm clear. If this is the variable term, that means these are both constants. Because you only have two types of terms. You have variable terms, you have constants. Okay. So it says to do what in the first step? So what is the constant on this? Oh, number 9. What's the constant that's on the same side as the variable? Yeah, so we start with that. So then what's it tell you to do? Next slide. And what's the first time you do the opposite path? Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be the opposite of that. Let's see, it tells you. The first time you're either going to add or subtract, which you already have that. So you would say, like, if you want to rewrite it, since I wish they would have written the graph below. But if you want to just kind of ignore the graph for now and say, okay, well, if I'm subtracting that from that, what's good? Yeah, and that's what we want. We want that to go away. Because what does it mean when we solve for a variable? What's that? What do we really say that is? We're really just doing this when we solve. We're just getting a variable by itself. Am I saying that? So to get the variable by itself, we got to get rid of that, which is what you just did by subtracting it. And then we're going to have to get rid of that in a second. But what's Mr. Gill's one? So if you do this, we'll tell you what, erase that and let's write the whole equation over again. It's only 2 steps. So really small, write that, rewrite that, make sure you write exactly the same. Right, last page. Who has the eraser? You have the eraser? Okay. So what does that mean? So this right here means what? We are dividing by a negative, so what does that mean you need to do? Point with your pencil. I'm not sure exactly. Now it will change what we do there, but it's the inequality is not going to be that. So instead of it being called less than or equal to, you actually have to flip it to greater than. You have to flip it. See what I'm saying? I want you to show me. I'm gonna show you what. So, like, I mean, right underneath the graph, right, negative 7x plus 7 is less than the negative 6. That's pretty small. Like, not way down here, but right above my thumb, literally squeeze it in above where my thumb is. All right, cool. Yeah. Perfect. So now do what you were telling me you need to do as your first step. Kind of already did, but let's do it now underneath where it should be. Well, so here, like that. When you do this, stay working. If you're subtracting 7 because you want to get rid of this 7, you go right underneath that 7. Like, see how if I'm subtracting 4, I do it right underneath the 4. And then when I do it to the other side, I do it right underneath the 24. That makes sure that I keep everything nice and organized and I don't get my terms of a variable confused with my terms of a number. So now, if you do it there, then where do you have to do it? So draw the line down. You still draw a line down the inequality sign, just like it was the equal sign. And then do it on the left. You gotta do it on the right. So go ahead and do it on the right. I'll help you now. Does anybody have any questions? There's a couple more people I want to check. If you were one of them, so I'll be on my way over there in a minute. I think we're in pretty good shape. What we're going to do next class period is because there is a multi-step equation on the exit ticket. I might just make it a bonus though. Probably will, since that was our goal. So, but again, if you can do them, then you have an opportunity to get some bonus points, which will really help considering the quiz that everybody just had last Friday. So, did you try and multi-step? I mean, it's up to you if you want to or not. Remember, I will probably put a bonus on you on Friday. You know, try multi-step. We'll do that for a little while, and we'll practice 2 steps a little more. Some kind of activity probably. We'll probably do 1 or 2 multi-step, and I'll let you do that a little bit, and we'll do that. Practicing multi-step will hurt you for sure. All right, so now here's the math on this. If you are in debt, like a negative number means you owe money. Let's talk about that. So if you owe me money, and if I come to you and I take away, which is what subtracting means, subtract 7 more from you, you owe me more money, not less. So you wouldn't owe me 49 now, you actually owe me more. You owe me 63. So when you have a negative and you subtract from that, then it's going to be a bigger negative. You're more in debt than you are. So write negative 63 on the right, and then I want you to try to do the next step on your own. I think you're probably good, but I'll come back and check. Well, let me check the 2-step first, just to make sure you're good for Friday. With your, so just math-wise, negative. Yeah, you're in debt $56. That's a negative number. Then I come to you and I say, give me 7 more. Subtracting 7 from you, which you don't have to give me. How much do you owe me now? So you owe me less. You owe me 56 a while ago. Now I'm taking even more. You owe me more. You're combining those negative numbers. Nothing cancels out. Like I didn't cancel out any of your debt. I took more debt from you. I giving you more money. You're more in debt. So that's the way you need to think of those positive and negative numbers. Now, if somebody would have given you, I said, plus 7, then that would have canceled some of your debt out. You're pretty good with all the equation stuff, so the only mistake I see for you on Friday would be that. I'm sorry, you had an actual question before that. What was your question? Step you on. You have distributive property. You have distributive property in that property. We have prisons, right? You have like terms on the left. There's only one number, I think. You can't count it. You have like terms on the right. So you do like term. They have the same letter. Plug it back in and try it. Or you still make things. Oh, just change on the other one. You didn't. I was talking specifically to you. I said somebody forgot to flip the sign. Your math's fine. But remember, if you divide by a negative, your last step, right? Divided by a negative. Now flip, so it's the original sign. Flip it. Less. That's what that means. If you guys aren't sure what I mean, let me go over this real quick. If you divide, so let's say the problem starts out with that symbol. If you divide by a negative, your answer, when you come out and you get the variable and the number, if you divide by a negative, when it says flip the symbol or flip the inequality sign, then your answer should look like that. You got to turn that thing around. That's what flip means. A lot of you aren't changing that sign. So again, if you divide, and there's at least 2 where you should be doing that. So if you never did that on any of them, you need to go back and look at your last step, see if you divided by a negative number. I mean, I will take off, even though it's an exit ticket, I will take off for that. Math mistakes, I'm not so worried about on an exit ticket. That's a process mistake. That's doing a step incorrectly, forgetting a step. Yeah, if you're flipping, it's no longer single. Oh yeah, if it's greater than or equal to, it becomes less than or equal to. Absolutely. If it's just greater than, it becomes less than. Yeah, you wouldn't get rid of the or equal to part. No. Just literally you're turning whatever the top sign is, the less than or equal, the less than or greater than part, you're just flipping that. All right, so you guys have been very good today. I feel like everybody put in good effort. Some of you, I think, got a little bit better, hopefully, at the 2-step. If you want to take the last 5-6 minutes and do, even more than that, really. If you want to keep working, again, you're the ones that have the exit ticket, and you're the ones that need the grade to come up for the most part. But I appreciate what you've done, so I'm fine with you taking a break the rest of the way if you want. And you can do whatever you want on your phone when you do that, as long as it's not completely inappropriate. We will do a little more of this on Thursday, just to remind you of how to do the 2-step, what the things are that you need to be careful of. And then we will do a little bit of multi-step, because I am going to put a multi-step on there as a bonus. If you need your grade to come way up, getting bonus points on an exit ticket will really help you. Getting over 100 basically would really help. So if you want to practice multi-step on your own before Thursday, wouldn't be a horrible idea. Probably be a pretty good idea. But you guys have been good today, so I'm going to give you the rest of it all. Did I stop recording? I don't even remember. I don't think I did. I saw the hand, but let me, yeah, I'm still recording, shoot. I'll trim it up later.